officers' pay is not linked to what they negotiate in a national freight rail contract. So they have no skin in the game, which is horrible for negotiations, right? They get a yearly cost of living raise. It's really ridiculous, and most of the members don't even know about it.
So we have on the line Reese Murtaugh and Nathaniel Tinsley. They are both running for leadership in the for the District Lodge 19 of the International Association of Machinists. The International Association of Machinists, they have district lodges that are not geographic, they are industrial. And so, for example, their District Lodge 141 represents airline workers, and their District Lodge 19 represents railroad workers. And so so they're running for leadership positions in District Lodge 19. Nathaniel, Reese, thanks for taking the time to talk to us this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So let's first start off with, I guess, just what y'all do and your history with the union, and then we'll get into what you're running for and the campaign and some of your reasons for running. And so, Nathaniel Tinsley, what's your job and what's your history been with the Association of Machinists?
Well, my job is locomotive technician. We work on everything from rebuilding engines all the way down to wheel truing. My history with the union is I've held multiple positions in the local level. I'm also a delegate to the Kansas State Council of Machinists. Currently, I actually am the legislative chairman for the local. I've been involved in labor activism pretty much my entire life. My dad was a union steward of IBEW for a major power company out here. I advocate for labor, and I've been involved in many, we could call it protests or just labor activism in general. I've always been involved with that, so that's pretty much in a nutshell.
And where are you from?
Kansas City, Missouri is where I live, and I work in the locomotive facility in Kansas City. That's actually in Kansas, Argentine LMIT.
Okay. And then Reese Murtaugh, am I pronouncing that right?
Murtaugh.
Okay. And I think I actually recognize you from CNN during the coverage of the rail strike. So we've got a big name here this morning. So Reese, do what? That's right. Yeah. Well, I appreciated your segment on CNN, and it's not often that places like that will talk to workers. So that it's always cool to see that. So talk to us about what you do and some of your history with the union.
So I'm a roadway mechanic for CSX Railroad. I work on heavy equipment that repairs the rails. I spent about half my career as a field mechanic, traveling from Florida to New York, out west to Indiana, where CSX operates in. I am the local chairman of Lodge 696 out of Richmond, Virginia. We have a big shop here in Richmond where we rebuild heavy equipment. We re-engineer it. We do welding. We have our own paint shop. And we actually build our own machine right here in Richmond, Virginia from the ground up. So it's a neat building. We have a lot of very smart, experienced mechanics, and as a local chairman, I represent them for discipline. I negotiate things on a local level, and I'm their voice on a local level, and just try to keep the carriers somewhat fair.
Right. And I know you've got a big job on your hands with that. And so, what are you running for within the district?
I'm going for the top spot. I am going for the president of District Lodge 19.
Wow. Okay. And then, Nathaniel, what about you?
General chairman, one of 9 positions for general chairman.
Okay, and so explain to us, Reese is running for the president and then general chairman in the district lodge. What is I think people can imagine the president is kind of the top guy, but what does a general chairman do?
The general chairman represents a region, would be like a region of railroaders. It'll be like multiple railroads, CSX, UP, BNSF, even some short line railroads. So basically a geographic area, cover, could be a couple thousand people. You'd be involved in arbitration, negotiating local agreements, trying to help people stay out of trouble and fight for their jobs, help them organize on the shop floor, to combat some of the tactics that the carriers use.
Gotcha. And so, Reese, I imagine that y'all's campaign in District Lodge 19 and y'all are running somebody for I think it is every one of the open positions, if not everyone, then most of them. I imagine that a lot of this kind of stems from the recent round of contract negotiations with the railroads. Is that right?
Yes, that was my catalyst. For me, that moment was water boiling out of a pot, right? It was just it was a breaking point. The carriers don't negotiate in good faith. The unions, our union at least, they've been in cruise control for a long time. We've continually lost ground. And then when we voted to strike, and then we met all the requirements in the Railway Labor Act where we had every legal right to strike. And then when the union just decided on their own to continually push the strike date back, I couldn't just sit by and watch it happen and then let them cruise into an election unopposed. So they pissed off the wrong person. And initially I was running solo for the president's job just to give him a hard time. And then as my campaign kind of grew, and there was just a movement of angry railroaders who reached out, and I put a team together, and it's really been just a grassroots amazing thing happening here. Our election process is very complicated. We've already won 2 elections just to get on the national ballot. We had to win a nomination election, which required 15% of all local lodges across the nation to endorse us. That's from Texas to Minnesota to California to Virginia. Then we had to win a runoff vote, which required we had to win 15% of those. So we won about 20 to 25% of the membership's vote so far, and we did not raise any money for those first 2 elections. It was all just a scrappy grassroots campaign of pissed off railroaders.
That's pretty impressive to have no campaign funds and to be able to do that. And when you're talking about 20 to 25% of the membership, how many people are we talking about there that have in some way or another supported this campaign by voting?
So there's 7,500 members in District Lodge 19. Now, the voting for these union officer elections is very anemic. I mean, we're trying to overcome this apathy, and that's why we're in this position of weakness, because all the guys that are pissed off don't vote. Part of the reason is the communication from the union is just pathetic. The email list they have is 881 members out of 7,500 members. Yes, so campaigning, I'm allowed to have access to the email list, right? Because I'm running a campaign, the DOL, there's DOL laws.
Right.
Well, the email list is 12% of the members, so it's not really helping me out, right? And to make things even more interesting, the union decided to use a third-party company to send emails out, and I'm charged $700 to send out an email blast to 881 people.
Brother, we we could get you a better deal than that, I think.
That's
I'm in the wrong
wild.
business.
All right, seriously.
Man.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
It's a stacked deck, man. I mean, I'm just been.
You can almost snail mail people for that amount of money.
That's exactly. It's almost the same price. So that's what we're doing now. Is the email list is such a joke that we're having to do snail mail. So we just launched a GoFundMe. We've hooked up with a great print shop. It's a Teamsters print shop here in Richmond, Virginia, Gibson Printing. He's hooking us up. He's really helping us out. Hell of a good guy. So that's kind of where we're at. Is it's just people don't know we exist, and that's the battle we're at. Because when people found out about us, they're like, we have a website, and they like, hell yeah, I want to have a choice. Like, there should be an election. And that's kind of the battle we're at right now. The union's controlling the information.
And so, and so you've had in some way or another, 20% of the union already vote for you. So you've already had more than the union's email list support your campaign in some way.
Yeah, so we're pretty big on social media. There's a lot of these guys. There's a Facebook site where everyone kind of piles in, and a lot of really good debate and open conversation in there. So that's basically that's been kind of a tool that we have that they don't have, right?
Right. And so then I guess I'm interested in some of the, I can certainly understand frustration with a union leadership that doesn't seem to be as activated as they really ought to be in an important moment. And so I understand why folks are interested in I would understand why folks would be interested in basically anything, right? But I think my understanding is that you're running on, yes, I want to change stuff. I want the union to be more active. I want the union, but my understanding is that you put some thought into, what are the specific things that you would be changing as president of District Lodge 19. Is that right?
That's right. So one of the things is the bylaws, right? So as leaders, we cannot change the bylaws, but we can start a conversation and let people know that these bylaws aren't democratic and they need overhaul. So that's part of what we're doing now. Is we're trying to start this conversation where our officers, their pay is not linked to what they negotiate in the National Freight Rail contract. So they have no skin in the game, which is horrible for negotiations, right? They get a yearly cost of living raise, and it's really ridiculous. And most of the members don't even know about it. And so part of what we're doing is we're just trying to educate. But as far as our platform, we are really a simple bunch. We want transparency. We want honesty. So we're obviously trying to improve communication. So the low-hanging fruit here is we're going to make an email list if we get elected. That is a campaign promise. I feel like we can deliver on it.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I know that sounds simple, but that's so important.
Hasn't been done yet. So yeah. So independence, we are going to operate the district autonomously. We are all railroaders. We know what's best for us, right? We don't need the IAM, pulling strings here. We don't need, Biden or Marty Walsh telling them, no, you guys aren't striking. If our members vote as leaders, it's our obligation and duty to follow through with this vote. And the last thing is improving the union democracy, just having fair elections. The Department of Labor has these standards of what you can and can't do, but there's nothing that says you can't go above the DOL standards, right? So,
Right.
Fair elections ensure that the officers represent the interests of the members. So it's really, like I say, we're really just getting back to the basics. I don't want to speak for all the rail unions, but a lot of the leadership has just grown comfortable. It's hard to, obviously I'm seeing it's hard to win an election, and there's not much accountability. So I think getting back to these principles will really hopefully improve all the rail unions when they see one doing it. Other ones, might be a cautionary tale to kind of clean up their own thing. But
Right. I saw a TikTok the other day. This guy was recounting an ad for mayor of Philadelphia, and the guy was something like, "I will ensure trash is collected in a reasonable amount of time. I will, collect any car that has been left on the road for more than a month," or something like this, and it was like there were three things, and it was not anything, outlandish, but it was just like, that's a reasonable, that seems accomplishable, and it's not being done, so that should be done. And this the campaign kind of reminds me of that.
Well, and the thing to me that I really respect what you guys are doing, because it takes a lot to put yourself out there as a candidate for union office. These union elections, like you said, are often met with a lot of complacency and a lack of participation, a lack of engagement. And frankly, there are leaders over the years who've preferred it that way. And, what I believe is that it's up to militant rank and filers to democratically revitalize our unions, whether that's on the rails or in the schools, in the factories, wherever it is. It seems to be an issue we have in our labor movement. And we have to really revitalize things from the bottom up, because these unions are institutions that have been beleaguered by apathy and atrophy over time. And, I think it's up to us, the militant activists, the workers who are paying attention, the workers who get pissed off like you. I think it's up to us to save the labor movement from the bottom up. And I think, y'all are an example of how you can do that by challenging, by ensuring there is a choice in union elections, by presenting a platform. And because I remember running for an election, and I actually had a platform, and people were confused because they didn't know that that's something that was done. It's so talk about kind of the low hanging fruit and stuff. So I know what you're talking about there. And so yeah, I really applaud the efforts and applaud you guys stepping out and doing that, because we need a lot more folks willing to step up and do the same.
Yeah, and Nathaniel, he was talking about some of the reasons that he started, and it sounds like Reese kind of got the ball rolling on this. But is there anything else that you wanted to add as to why you decided to join, or to flesh out any of the other motivations behind y'all's caucus?
I've been on the railroad for 16 years, and in that time, and also speaking with some of the guys that have already worked at the railroad for 30 years, I mean, people they're pissed off, they're frustrated with the union leadership, and it's just decades in the making. And I couldn't stand back and just see these guys run unopposed. I believe that the workers should have a choice. I think competition's good for our organization. Here at Argentine, we were able to, I got to give those guys a shout out, because we had about 100 people come out and vote. And, we had the biggest turnout in the nominations of any other local. And I think that really speaks to, it speaks to the bigger picture for the machinists of how people feel about the leadership we currently have. But, I agree with you guys 100% about, we're all in this together, all organizations, we're all, in a way, we're all in this together. But for machinists, I believe in a bottom up approach, that the more we engage people, the better we're going to do. The more that our membership is educated on all the rules and regulations and all that, and that we come together and fight together, stand together, I think that they'll do much better.
And Nathaniel, you mentioned that there is a sense that like, yes, this is a machinist's problem that we're trying to fix here, but that there's more to it outside of your own union. And I understand that over the course of these the issue with the rail negotiations, the Railroad Workers United were front and center really in the national conversation. How connected are y'all with Railroad Workers United?
We talk.
Gotcha. And how inspired do y'all see your own campaign with the some other reform slates in the past couple of years that have been successful, like in the UAW and the Teamsters?
Yeah, so it seems like there's a movement, which is amazing, right? Because there needs to be just a kick in the ass here, right? And there needs to be it's just a complacency and apathy and that's not what a union is supposed to be about. We're supposed to be these activists, right? And then if we see an injustice, we act. If it's a rail carrier or, once you get trained and become a troublemaker, you might look around and see injustice in your own union. And that's what's going on in the machinist. And I can tell you that I've had a few different people, I'm not going to say what unions from other rail unions, reach out to me and say, I want to do this in my rail union. How do I get started? And my first answer is look at your bylaws.
Right.
We have, so the District Law 19 is 1 member, 1 vote, which is democratic. Some of these rail unions have to go to a convention and they do their voting on the floor there. But so there's definitely, people are being inspired. I don't know how far it's going to go, but it's much needed. And one other thing another campaign promise here is we're going to build a coalition with other unions and negotiate. The last contract, we had a coalition, and then as soon as the PEB put out their recommendation, everyone scattered like cockroaches. Unfortunately, the machinists were the first ones to break out of it, which doesn't look good. So there's been some work behind the scenes. I've already been talking to some other unions, and there's definitely interest. There needs to be trust though, because what the machinists did in the last contract vote kind of burned some bridges, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
Sure. So, Reese, you mentioned that you had a website. Where can folks go to learn more?
That is DL19united.com. You can check us out. Everyone has a bio that's running with us. If you want to throw us a couple dollars to send out some envelopes, there's a GoFundMe going. Employers and rail and unions cannot contribute. That's a DOL law. But yeah, check us out. And June 9th, we got a big election. And if we win, I can guarantee that the contract negotiations are going to be different in about 1.5 years on the railroad.
All right, Reese, Nathaniel, thanks for talking to us, and we look forward to continuing to watch the campaign unfold.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.